Great day, everybody. Welcome back to another incredible episode of the Jim Gale Show. I'm Matthew Britt, coming at you from Ontario, Canada. It's great to be here. And as always, my great friend and partner and brother, Mr. Jim Gale. Good to see you, my man.
Good to see you too, Matthew. Oh my gosh, I'm excited for this show today. I just got the tip of the information just now, and this is something that I want to learn a lot about. And little bit of a detail on what's been going on. Every morning at about 3-4 in the morning, I am awakened by an energy that is loaded with ideas. And then I go type these ideas, and what's coming from that is just a lot of fun. So I look at, there's no more coincidences in this world. There's cooperative incidences and synchronicities when people resonate together, when they vibrate, when we are living this amazing time where people are coming together like no time in history. So, and speaking of that, Michael, I'm so glad you're here, and I can't wait to hear about what you have to say today.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me here. Guys, yeah, so cool. Where do we start?
Michael, it's great to have you here, coming at us from South Africa. I think you're early evening where you are now. And just a little backstory, you and I have been talking for about a year now, and you have been a tremendous friend and asset to Food Forest Abundance and our mission here and the Freedom Farm Academy. You've brought some incredible connections to our business, and you've also done an incredible amount of business yourself that just fits very well with where we're intending to go with our company. So just wanted to take a minute to acknowledge you. Thank you for everything you've done so far and all of the things that are coming together for the future. And, why don't you start just by giving everybody a little bit of insight into who you are and what you're doing.
Okay, cool. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Michael. I'm currently living in Cape Town, South Africa. I've been basically based here, but also been living in different places like in Europe and Thailand and East Africa. I've gone to Peru and North Europe in a few places, in France, Spain. But so I've kind of been moving around, but I've kind of been passionate about two things mainly. The one's software and the other one's been plant medicines. So I've been working with plant medicines for over a decade now, and I've been exploring different ones. So I've kind of gone through periods. Like the first main one that I was working with for quite a few years was San Pedro. I used to have like a massive San Pedro garden, and I used to like make it, take friends up the mountain, basically do journeys all the time. And then I got into ayahuasca, and then I ended up basically, because it's quite a big medicine community here in Cape Town. So I ended up doing ceremony after ceremony, and eventually I met some healers, and they basically invited me to come to Peru and come and apprentice with them. So that got me to go to Peru, and basically for 2 years, I went over to Peru and I did about 7 months of dietas with ayahuasca, and then I ended up doing like over 100 ayahuasca ceremonies. And that's just kind of like, I guess like made me really, just really opened up the veil to reality and life and who I am as a human being and what's going on with humanity and the spirit world and all kinds of different things. That actually took me quite a few years to integrate and come to like, and it also just made me understand that there's a whole different history to humanity, and it just made me want to maybe also understand how important these plant medicines are and how we actually are missing them in our culture. So before, like they say colonialism spread throughout the world, almost all the indigenous cultures had some sort of plant medicine at the heart of their culture. And Graham Hancock goes into this quite deeply, where he talks about how every single advanced ancient culture had basically a plant medicine. He reckons that's why they were these advanced ancient cultures, and that's why they were able to build the pyramids and things in alignment with the star systems. And they had it like on the hieroglyphs of the Egyptian temples, like snuff trays and all kinds of stuff. And they all like revered these plant medicines, and they would call them like entheogens. And the word entheogen means spirit revealing. So these medicines give you a direct connection to the universal intelligence behind life. And through that, and also Richard Rudd, he wrote an amazing book called The Gene Keys. And in the Gene Keys, he reckons that there's different planes of consciousness, and plants and animals live on what he calls the monadic plane. And that's the unified field of the consciousness of the earth. So for me, I've just been like I started exploring them because they felt to me like I was tapping into the intelligence of the planet, and I could download any information I wanted from like the planetary intelligence. And I felt like I was getting more truth from these plant medicines than what I was getting from any human being, because I felt like from us living in the matrix, it's almost like there's like let's say a computer virus or something in our software system of like humanity, and it's almost like everything is kind of being corrupted on some level. And then through these plant medicines, I felt like I was getting like a direct connection with truth. So that's kind of what made me explore them. And then I actually found this amazing talk. It's also channeling from the Pleiadians, and actually they talk about how the earth is actually a living library. And basically, and like different, I mean, this is like a far out concept, but basically how different star races actually seeded the earth as like some sort of like repository of information, and human beings were actually the library cards. And the way that we access information from the living library is with these plant medicines. And for me, that was quite profound to hear that, because basically I felt like I was doing like the whole time. I was basically downloading information from this like internet system and getting answers to universal questions and things that I felt like you wouldn't necessarily get access to, like does God exist, the nature of death, all that sort of stuff, why we're in the matrix, what's going on with human beings, sort of like, because like for me, like on a fundamental level, I feel that if human beings were being, like, let's say, living their true nature, or had access to, like, for me, like, I guess I'll explain like this: why wouldn't we be creating heaven on earth right now? Like, if every human being wanted the best for themselves and everybody else, why aren't we creating like paradise on this planet? And for me, it just seems like a kind of like a spiritual, let's say, dilemma or problem. And I've kind of been exploring the plant medicines to try and solve or access information about kind of what's kind of going on here. And then I've also been delving into different spiritual teachings and stuff. I especially got attracted, especially through ayahuasca, I got attracted to a branch of Gnostic teachings, and they refer to this universal problem or dilemma as the great arcanum. And the word arcanum means deep secret or mystery. And they basically say that every single ancient spiritual culture has encoded this puzzle into their teaching. So they've all got different stories, but they've all got the same symbols. And that's those same symbols are the single universal truth. And it's all about kind of us reconnecting with our divine nature. And it's basically, it's like we're living in some sort of like computer program that's kind of like a false reality. So when it comes to Iboga, my connection to Iboga, or like my fundamental understanding of Iboga, is actually through direct communication with Iboga. So with Iboga, you can actually interface with it. It's like a very advanced biotechnology or biocomputer or consciousness. So when you're on an Iboga journey, especially, like the microdosing is more subtle, but when you're on an Iboga journey, you can actually communicate with the intelligence of the plant. So I actually asked the plant in one journey, what are you? And the answer I got was, I'm a cosmic medicine, you're a cosmic being, and the real reality is the cosmic reality. So, wow. Yeah, let's leave it there for now.
I love all of that. And so I've had 6 ayahuasca journeys, and they were profound. They changed my life, and they changed my relationship with my wife, and they changed my wife's life significantly. And to be specific, my wife, after we had our first daughter, her fear of death and leaving our little girl went through the roof. She became fearful. And during one of the ayahuasca ceremonies, a black leopard, we lived in Costa Rica and we were in the jungle at the time of the ceremony, and a black leopard the size of a bull, and we've had several experiences with bulls there too in Costa Rica, one which the bull got out of the cage and was knocking people over at a fair, and I had Nacho, her little brother, hanging over a bar, ready to drop him on the other side of the bar because the bull was looking at us from 10 feet away and gonna charge the crowd, and I couldn't move anymore. It was epic. So these fears get stuck in our minds and in the tissues of our body. And one of the fears, so what happened during the ayahuasca ceremony is the black leopard, the size of a bull, killed her over and over and over again until she realized that there is no such thing as death.
Okay, amazing.
And boom, she was done. She was free of that fear. My big revelation was my daughters. I have two daughters, Mia and Selah, who were, when I was in Costa Rica, the mom and I were not aligned. And we tried everything, went to a counselor. The counselor said, Jim, get out of the relationship. It's not going to go well. I love that counselor to this day for that, because I was expecting her to tell me something I knew was not going to be true. The fact that she told me what I already knew to be true, I'm so appreciative of her. But anyway, the pain and the guilt and the shame I felt for not making it work with the mother, then the mother took my daughters to California without my consent when I was in Costa Rica on a short trip, and I came home and they were gone. And I felt such pain and guilt and anguish over this experience until my ayahuasca journey showed me that it was love, that it was all based in love. And my anguish and shame and guilt was just based in my loving my daughters. And so from that moment forward, then it's been just nothing but love ever since. So I'm so thankful to these plant medicines, the divine wisdom in these medicines. And I have not tried Iboga or Ibogaine. So I can't wait to hear more about that experience and then try it sometime soon.
Yeah, no, definitely. Okay, that sounds, it's amazing. It's amazing to hear what ayahuasca did for you and how it kind of touched your life. And it's kind of did the same thing for me with my like family relationships and stuff. It helped me forgive my mother because I got abandoned when I was like 13 years old. And it helped me understand and forgive her because I was angry like right into my 20s. And then when I was in Peru, I was working with the medicine, and the medicine showed me that what happened was actually connected to all of humanity's disconnection from spirit. So it was actually not my mother's fault. Yeah. And it was actually like a universal kind of thing. And that actually made me kind of like able to forgive her, because as a child, you can't understand it. But then as like an adult, it kind of just like helped me understand also then what's also going on with humanity. And I actually watched a Graham Hancock video recently, and he was saying that basically all these indigenous healers, they say there's only one issue going on with humanity, and that's basically disconnection from spirit.
Yes, that's it. That's the only issue. Good versus evil, disconnection from spirit. It's all the same thing. And reconnection is the solution to disconnection.
Yeah, exactly. And that's actually one interesting thing. Like in one Iboga journey, the medicine actually taught me a little rhyme to describe the process of life. And the rhyme it taught me is that you have to lose your way to find your way. Yeah. Because you can't find your way without losing your way. That is the way.
This is the game of life. It's such a beautiful game when we can understand that simple truth.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I see us like instruments. We're kind of constantly going in and out of tune with ourselves. And every single time we're going out of tune, it's like we're going out of tune in order to like gain some sort of understanding, in order to come back into tune or come back into alignment with ourselves, but with like a deeper awareness. And when we have that deeper awareness, then we can almost like be more centered in ourselves and be more connected to ourselves. And life is a kind of a process of kind of going in and out of tune. So I kind of just watch my life almost like with a sense of detachment, because and Iboga also gives you that. It gives you the sense of almost like emotional detachment, so that you can observe like the process of life on like a different level. And also Iboga also showed me that, because Iboga like teaches you a lot of things when you're doing a journey. So like in one journey I did, the medicine showed me that life is an evolutionary process. And the evolutionary process that you're in is the process of growing closer and closer to your own soul. And the process of growing closer to your own soul is the process of growing closer to God. And also what we're going through as a species right now, it's a bit like the way the medicine showed it to me. It's a bit like having a stone in your shoe. And that stone in your shoe is the source of disconnection. And when you're walking with a stone in your shoe, at first it's like a little bit uncomfortable. And as you're going further, then your foot starts blistering. And after a while, you're walking, your foot starts bleeding. And eventually you can't walk anymore. And I kind of feel like we're at that point as a species. We're at the point where our foot's bleeding and we can't walk anymore. So we basically have to take the shoe off and find the stone. And that stone is the source of disconnection so that we can reconnect as a species or as individuals on like a deeper level. So that's basically, just kind of quite an interesting thing to see playing out for humanity right now, and have that understanding from the medicine as to sort of like that process and kind of what we're going through. So
I find it interesting how many times that the plant medicines have been made illegal by the mind controllers. And I was listening to, I'm trying to think of what it was, if it was a book I was listening to or a podcast or a video that I recently saw, but it was talking about colonialism. And when the Europeans came over into South America, that they actually were able to get rid of a lot of the San Pedro, but not ayahuasca.
I told you that.
The San Pedro was out in the open, but the ayahuasca, being in the dense jungle, it was something that they weren't able to remove. And part of the story that was being talked about in whatever it was I was listening to was how the plant medicine makes you stronger, made stronger men. It was tougher to control those people. So they tried to remove the plant medicine because it made them weaker. And they got them, instead of being on, utilizing plant medicine, they got them addicted to alcohol and tobacco and sex and like weak things that then broke down the strong men, broke apart family, was able to conquer those people much easier. And it's still being done now, right? They're still preventing us from utilizing a lot of these things that can connect us to Mother Nature and each other and love in a different way.
That's the story it's telling me. It's actually something I told you about, because that was my maestro who told me that. So when I was in Peru doing ayahuasca, he asked me the one day, like, do you know why there's no San Pedro lineages, only ayahuasca lineages? And that's the story that he kind of told me. And the first thing the colonialists would do when they went and conquered different tribes was actually they would kill the healers, because the healers were responsible for keeping the tribe strong. And the minute they would kill the healers, so that's almost like the Achilles heel of humanity. And it's still to today, like if you watch what happened with the whole, like let's say COVID or coronavirus story, the Achilles heel of humanity is actually the medical system. So basically, and the word pharmaceutical comes from the word pharmakia. And the word pharmakia means sorcery. So basically, we're all divine beings. And it's like the war, the way I see it, the war kind of going on with humanity right now is the war on our DNA. So everything from like the electromagnetic radiation to the artificial environments, to the GMO food, to the glyphosate on it, to the pharmaceuticals, to the COVID vaccines. It's all about kind of damaging our DNA.
Yes.
And it's like we are this, like the way I see it, we are like this very advanced spiritual technology of some kind, and we don't understand ourselves fully. And this kind of war between good and evil on Earth is basically kind of been going on for like thousands of years, and it's like a really deep rabbit hole kind of going on. But like they would basically like destroy the library, like the Library of Alexandria. That the reason why they destroy it is to remove the knowledge of who we are, because if we remove the knowledge of who we are, then we're easy to control and manipulate. So that's basically, and then these plant medicines, it's like it's all actually hypnosis. So our whole reality is actually controlled through hypnosis. That's actually what Iboga showed me. So if I tell you something and you believe me, then I've hypnotized you. So the way the kind of everything through the media and everything is just constant, like it's like we've got these like psychological defense mechanisms.
Yeah.
So basically, but then if you get the same message over and over and over and over, like your defense mechanism goes up, it goes up, it goes up, and then the next third, fourth time it doesn't go up, and then the message goes in. And then you've kind of been hypnotized, and we're kind of constantly being hypnotized the whole time. And these medicines are basically, they remove that hypnotic programming. And it's actually encoded into our DNA as well, the programming. And it's also to do with states of consciousness. Like I went on a high magic course a few years ago, and we learned about these higher laws of nature. And the one higher law of nature is the law of symbol and reality. And the law states that when you link a symbol to a certain state of consciousness, it manifests in a certain reality. So our whole reality is actually magic, and symbols being linked to like the money system and contracts, flags, all that kind of stuff. These are all symbols with certain meaning linked to states of consciousness. And those states of consciousness are actually what build this whole, like, let's say, matrix computer program. And then when you do something like ayahuasca or Iboga or any of these plant medicines, what they do is they take you out of that kind of programming field and they reconnect you with nature.
Yeah.
And then it allows you to see the truth of kind of what's going on here and stuff. But then it's very hard to kind of stay in that state. Except for like Iboga. Iboga is actually like the fundamental difference between Iboga and the other plant medicines. It's like if you do something like ayahuasca, it's like it shifts you, but then it's like you shift back very easily when you kind of get back into the matrix. But like the thing with Iboga that makes Iboga quite fundamentally unique is when you shift, you don't shift back in the same way. So that's one of so Iboga is kind of generally known as like the king of the plant medicines. So out of all the plant medicines, so like many of these other plant medicines like mushrooms, ayahuasca, even San Pedro, so they'll generally range between, say, 5 to 12 hours. San Pedro is actually quite a long one. But then an Iboga journey can last up to 36 hours.
Wow. That's amazing. So you mentioned earlier that the medical system, and what word did you use? The medical system is what?
Sorcery.
In what way? Sorcery. The word
pharmacopoeia.
No doubt it is. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. The word pharmaceutical comes from the word pharmakia, and the word pharmakia means sorcery.
Yeah. And it was written in the Bible. Pharmakia would bring in the end of days. But there's also the legal system, which is the undoing of God's law. So when we take the medical system and the legal system and the mass media system together, we've got the wicked upon wicked, the evil triangle of control on the planet. And then, of course, nature, God's law, is infinitely more powerful than all that. And we always come back to that eventually. But that's the game we're playing. That's the matrix that we created for ourselves, from my experience as spirit, to forget, like you said, who we truly are, and then to come back to who we truly are.
Yeah, it's all just a process of coming back to our true selves. And I feel like these plant medicines, because it's almost like it's all based on separation. So like my understanding of this reality is, it's almost like every single ancient culture, they've got a story of how we fell from grace or how we separated from ourselves.
Yep.
And like I was listening to a David Icke interview, and he was saying that every single ancient culture actually recorded the serpent as the fall of mankind.
Wow.
And it's also our medical symbol, the two serpents curling up, becoming the feathered serpent. So basically, according to the Gnostics, we basically misused our kind of Kundalini energy, and that's what created the separation from ourselves, and that's also what created the ego. Yeah. And like the Native Americans referred to the ego as the Wetiko, and the Wetiko was basically like a vampiric spirit, and they saw it as that Wetiko spirit, or that it's basically like a computer virus, is what drove colonialism and got like 90% of the Native Americans to be like basically slaughtered and stuff. So it's quite interesting. And all spiritual teachings are about how to deconstruct the ego, or how to remove this kind of computer virus. I'd
like to add what I know to be a spiritual teaching to that deconstruction of the ego. The ego is the separation from the bigger I, right? Exactly. The little I, the Jim Gale is just a temporary experience. It's like Mario. It's exactly in a way, like we're playing Mario. And
Yeah,
all of a
exactly.
sudden so I'm on the couch and I'm playing Mario and there's Luigi on the screen. And all of a sudden I identify with Luigi and I forget that I'm Jim Gale. Right.
Yeah.
And the ego is so scared to lose itself that it creates all these barriers around losing its identity. Well, that's the ignorance. I would rather be Jim Gale playing Mario than stuck in Mario Land. Just like I'd rather be the big eye playing the little eye and identify with the big eye than the little eye. So that's the thing that we want to help people realize is that losing the self is actually you're not losing anything. You're simply rising your awareness to be aware of a bigger reality, a much more expansive. You can still go down and play the Jim Gale role. I can anytime I want, but I would rather be looking at this whole reality from a more connected, more aware perspective. And then what I believe to be true is that there are infinite levels of awareness.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I want to point out kind of the next phase of our disconnection that is being rolled out. They're now intending to move us into these 15-minute cities, right? Bringing everybody from the rural in nature, disconnecting us further and putting us more into the concrete jungle, creating more of that disconnection, more of the self, right? The consumerism driven focus, disconnected from the consciousness of all of us, disconnected from nature, disconnected from our food, disconnected from everything, even each other, even though we'll be packed together. The disconnection between everybody is greatest in the city. At least I have noticed that. Being in the country and being in the city, two different things. The cold of the city compared to the warmth of the country. And I'm saying that in the people. You can feel the major difference in how the people who are separated from each other in the countryside are more welcoming and inviting and smiling and saying hi. And then I walk down the streets of my busy city. Nobody smiles. Nobody looks at you. Nobody says hi. You know, you got these condo buildings full of hundreds or thousands of people. Nobody knows each other. So they're closer than ever, yet further apart than ever. And you can see that that's a strategy now being employed with this 15-minute city kind of concept. So what I'm getting at there is everybody watching here, we need to be thinking, how do we get ourselves further out of the city, be involved in your food production, be involved in helping your neighbors, be involved in stewarding the land and animals and caring for nature first. That serves all of us in a much better and more profound way.
Yeah, and I agree with that. That's why I'm on the way to the Azores right now to go explore living in one of these new earth communities and growing food and set up agroforestry systems and living in these bioarchitecture buildings and looking at using alternative medicines and building a model to show people that we can do things like differently. And because I agree with you full-heartedly. Like, I mean, like in the city here in Cape Town, you're getting like fried by 5G everywhere you go, and I can feel it. It's sort of and it's like this constant
I just got my
fear.
EMF protection pendant today in the mail. Shout out to our friends, Essential Energy.
Yes. Go on.
I love
I'll have to look up that one. But yeah, these pendants help a lot actually. But it's still like you obviously don't want to get fried by like 5G all the time. So it's sort of like helps to a degree, and for when you're going in and out of the city. But so it's quite a amazing time that we're in at the moment.
So you've created Iboga Reset, your new business. Tell us a little bit about that. And I know you're kind of focusing on more the microdosing side, utilizing Iboga in a kind of more of a daily practice, not the 36-hour spiritual journey. Can you give us a little more insight into Iboga Reset and what you got going on there and the microdosing benefits?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm actually doing both, but I haven't focused on it right now, the journeys, but I have been doing journeys with people for years.
Okay.
And sort of like, yeah, and actually at once, but the microdosing side is just something that I can get out on, let's say, a larger scale. So that's sort of like why I've also been pushing that. And it's just like an easier thing for most people to start with the microdosing. Because when people hear about a 36-hour journey, it's sort of like it's quite intimidating to a lot of people to, and then they hear a story, especially with like a lot of the stories, because the thing is like most people hear about this because Iboga is very well known for addiction. So the guy called Howard Lotsoff, he discovered this. He was a heroin addict, and then how to say he basically took Ibogaine once, and he thought also he was taking it recreationally. And then when he took it recreationally, he accidentally discovered that he didn't basically it got him off heroin and he had no withdrawals or anything. And then he was basically became an evangelist for it. And he basically went and spread it throughout the world, telling everybody, oh, this can help with addiction. So most people know Iboga for addiction, but I feel like there's so much more to Iboga. So for me, I'd like to kind of get people to understand that Iboga is like the most amazing physical healer, spiritual healer, emotional healer. It's sort of like my friend, she just through microdosing she microdosed very small amounts for 2 years, and she managed to heal 4 autoimmune issues with the medicine, including rheumatoid arthritis. I've had like so many like stories like this of people healing like all kinds of different things. But even with journeys, like I had a guy recently, he couldn't feel his legs anymore. He had because of nerve damage, and he did a journey, and afterwards he could feel his legs again. And it's like so you kind of like have these like amazing stories of people like getting healed from the most miraculous things. So that's like so you can either do the full flood journey or you can do the microdosing. But for me, I don't prefer one or the other because both of them you can get the most amazing benefits out of it. So like Iboga, just the microdosing is like you are like more confident, more assertive. It brings out your creativity. You don't go into the same like heavy emotional states. It helps a lot with anxiety and depression. And yeah, just basically mental clarity. And you can feel it like healing your DNA. So if you've got like any physical issue, so like I basically have been feeling when I was microdosing, and I had like the same nervous system damage and stuff, I could actually feel it just through the day. Like if I'm just doing meditation or yoga or anything like that, I can actually feel my body healing, and the medicine's actually working on my body, even at microdosing levels. But then when you do a flood journey, and a flood journey is like way, so like the difference between like a microdose and a flood is that with microdosing, I'll take like half a gram for a microdose, so like one capsule, and then so even a microdose is like quite effective and quite potent. But then a flood journey is like 30 times that, and it puts you into like a total different. It's the most incredible experience, a flood journey. So like I love the microdosing because I can do it every day, and I can have that connection to the plant spirit in my life, and I can just feel this emotional support in my life. But when you do a flood journey, it's like being in the mind of God, and it's sort of
Wow.
like.
When can we do this?
well, I'll be closer soon. Like I'll be in the Azores soon, so you guys can come over and come do a flood, or I can come
Man.
over there.
And I want to share too, because I'm a researcher. I love researching, and of the 6 ayahuasca ceremonies that I've had, and I'm very excited to try Iboga, but the ayahuasca ones, I asked everybody in the room because you get to know people. These are incredible connecting ceremonies. And I asked everybody in the room, how was your experience the next day? And well, so an average of probably 20 people per session with me. So let's just call it 100 people. Um, of 100 people, I knew, let me see, at least 4 or 5 people who were addicted to heroin or some crystal meth or some kind of major narcotic that was messing up their life, major drug, chemical drug. And 100% of them were done the next day. They said, I don't want it anymore. There
Amazing.
were 2 people that had kind of too intensive experience where they felt maybe a leftover trauma that had not been resolved, and there was 2 people that came in stoned and they didn't feel much of anything. So the it was way over 90% of people had a tremendous and healing experience from my personal experience talking to people.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, it's super special, the community and everything that gets created, especially for me, for my ayahuasca experiences. I felt like you just basically get to know people on such a deep level, and the ceremonies you do, it's like you're all going through the same experience on some level. I actually had a healer that I used to work with ayahuasca. His name was Gilbert Grandes. He's like the most phenomenal dude. He would hold ceremonies, but he wouldn't even take ayahuasca. And he'd be able to tell you which spirits came into the room, what they were about, what the ceremony was about, and it would resonate on such a deep and fundamental level with everybody.
That's amazing, right?
Yeah. For me, I've always been fascinated by magic. Like since I was a kid, like I used to like read the stories of King Arthur. I used to watch like all like David Copperfield and what's the David Blaine, all those guys.
Yes.
And I used to like buy like all the magic sets when I was a kid and everything. And then when I got into plant medicines, it was like finding real magic. And I was like adult magic. And that's what made me want to go to Peru and go study with indigenous healers. And when I went over to Peru, I was like blown away. I was like, geez, like, how did we not know about this in the West?
Exactly. Well, we know why, because they made it illegal, the undoing of God's law, decades ago, generations ago, because it works.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's like it's part of like it's all about controlling us at the end of the day, so that they can enslave us. And it's like this whole paradigm of like trying to dominate others in order to feel like God, but it's like the ego wanting to be God instead of us kind of connecting as like a collective kind of God consciousness or Christ consciousness. So like I feel like those ancient cultures that built like, let's say, ancient Egypt and like all these like amazing structures, the people were obviously in a different state of consciousness on a collective level. And I feel that what we're here to do or achieve as a species, again, is to get back into that state of consciousness where we're able to create and manifest things that are in alignment with a kind of universal God's law, like divine intelligence, where we're tapping into these very high states of consciousness. And I think like things like the pyramids, I think they were actually like temples where they actually would have these ceremonies and rituals, and they were able to tap into like higher intelligence and do things that we probably can't even fathom today with regards to like what they were able to tap into and level of intelligence and stuff. So yeah. Yeah, you guys have any other questions, or do you want me?
I love it. I'm such a fan. Everybody listening, this is the real deal from my direct experience and from everybody I know. So I would just encourage everybody to explore and feel your way into it.
Yeah. The way it's like, it's like the thing with Iboga, I just wanted to share some more, is that Iboga is basic. It's like the way I understand like how we operate is that like from the Gene Keys, the guy who wrote the Gene Keys is an incredible book. It's based on sort of like it's based on the I Ching, but it's based on how our DNA works. And according to modern science, 97% of our DNA is junk DNA. But if you like modern, like new understandings with epigenetics and stuff, is that this junk DNA is not actually junk DNA. It's actually our whole evolutionary history. So the way I see it is that we are like these like biocomputers. And apparently we've got like these like epigenetic markers, which will be linked to like ancient plagues or wars or like basically things that happened in our evolutionary history. So even though in this lifetime, like I'm 34 years old and basically we're all like different ages, like 30, 40, 50 years old, we actually are hundreds of thousands or millions of years old, our DNA history. So basically in the Bible, they talk about like the sins of the father becoming the sins of the son. It's basically, it's almost like that's like an analogy for actually how the DNA memory is passed down from like a whole ancestral kind of history. So Iboga is actually ancestral medicine. So it's basically when you're doing an Iboga journey, what happens is it starts playing all this memory for you like a movie. And as the medicine gets stronger, the movie starts playing faster. And then as it's almost like somebody slowly turning up the volume. And then it starts playing, it's a bit like a supercomputer. And eventually it's going so fast, it's going. with regards to the speed that you're actually processing the memory at. And what it's doing, it's basically, Iboga showed me this actually one journey. It brings up, it shows it to you like, it showed me like a warehouse, and it showed me like almost like thousands of years or thousands of lifetimes, like in this giant warehouse. And then what happens is it takes the memory out, a bit like a filing cabinet. So basically it takes away like all our trauma is almost like memory being filed incorrectly. So what the medicine does, it brings up the memory to be processed in order to be filed correctly again.
Wow.
So Iboga's like basically like a supercomputer. So when I say you're in the mind of God, it's basically like a supercomputer for bringing up this memory. It's a bit like you plugged into like you are like a little Windows PC on your own, and then you go and plug yourself into like this IBM like supercomputer mainframe kind of thing, and then like the difference in processing capability between you as like this little individual or you plugging into this like very advanced intelligence is like quite phenomenal. So they equate like one Iboga journey to about like 10 years of therapy. That's like the analogy that they use because of the speed that you can actually process things at. So when you do an Iboga journey, you come out feeling like a brand new version of yourself. Wow. So the way I understand like evolution is us processing memory. So if you go through an experience or you get trauma of some kind and you process through this trauma, once you've processed through this trauma, you've gained, it's like you come to a new level of wisdom or understanding or experience. And it's like, also feel that basically it's all about understanding, like wisdom is all about living in alignment with life. So whenever we go out of alignment with life, we basically create some sort of trauma for ourselves.
Yep.
And then when we basically process that trauma, we understand how we went out of alignment with life. And some trauma can be very severe. So basically, like, let's say you go through some sort of like very bad breakup, or you have some like get raped when you're a child, or like there's like all kinds of stuff that can happen to us that can take years or even a whole lifetime to process. So what Iboga does is like, I mean, it's also like Iboga carries like almost like the frequency of what you would equate like called Christ consciousness. So basically it's like this golden divine energy. And what it does is it allows you to face things that will be very hard for you to face as like it's almost like a lot of these like addictions, all that kind of stuff. It's all linked to trauma that people don't want to face. And that trauma, basically plant medicine, especially Iboga, it will bring it up for you and help you process it and also understand it on like deeper levels that you could, like I went through a very bad breakup a few years ago. And basically it's the way the medicine helped me understand that breakup was totally profound, like exactly how the whole thing played out, the whole situation, how it was created, the dynamics. So also for like understanding relationships, like in Gabon, they actually use Iboga before people are going to get divorced. So what happens in Gabon is that they've got this thing called La Bola in Africa. Do you guys know what La Bola is? So La Bola, yes. No. So La Bola is basically like a payment that you make in Africa. So when a man wants to marry a woman, he has to pay the family in order to get married to the woman. And normally it's like a lot of cows or something like that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, like a dowry or something.
Yeah, exactly. So basically in Africa, when people get divorced, they have to pay back the La Bola. And many times it's actually murders and stuff. So it's actually quite a bad problem is people getting divorced. So as like a last resort thing that they do before people get divorced, actually give them Iboga. So, and Iboga, they call Iboga also the medicine of one heart. So whoever takes Iboga, it creates one-heartedness amongst people who take Iboga, which is also quite a beautiful, and yeah, so for me, I feel it can help a lot with like New Earth communities and relationships. And it's almost like any issue that human beings are faced with, Iboga could probably help with. That's kind of like what I've come to, from like relationship issues to physical issues to emotional issues to mental issues, because basically all it's going to do is it's almost like everything's to do with us being out of alignment in some way, and it's to do with sort of like our DNA kind of being damaged in some way, or toxicity in the system, or toxicity in our energy system. And basically, Iboga, the way it works is basically when you're doing a journey, it feels like it's working on every single level. So it's working on the physical levels, working on the emotional levels, working on the spiritual levels, working on the mental level, all those different levels that make up who we are. It's like the medicine basically goes into that and starts repairing it. And it's like it puts your body, they basically say it puts your body into what they call an oneric state. So an oneric state is a waking dream state. And in that waking dream state that you go into, it's basically your body, how would I say? It basically feels like it goes into like a hyper healing state. And it feels like your body, it's like the medicine comes into your body, and it feels like almost like it's augmenting your body's intelligence and making your body 1,000 times more, like 1,000 times more intelligent. And then it's almost like, and it's like plugging in a battery at the same time. So, and this battery is giving your body all this resources to repair itself.
Wow.
It makes me think of how much trauma is in the world, especially in the West, and especially with new life, right? How babies are brought into the world today, and how we're taught to let the baby cry it out, right? Baby's going to bed, put the baby in a room by themselves, let them cry. They need to figure out how to go to sleep on their own. Think of the trauma experience that is for a little human that's new, right? All like the way they come into the world, the way we care for our children in the West, there's a lot of trauma. And I think the trauma is causing so many destructive patterns in people, partly on how we're in the state we're in today. And if this medicine can be a thing to help eliminate or at least revisit that trauma and then move through it so you can, breathe it away, figuratively speaking, the difference that can make in unifying the people again and getting love back as a foundational piece for our operating system and how we build our communities. What a powerful thing that would be.
Yeah, that's exactly why I want to get this out into the world, is that I feel that's exactly what we need as a species. And I don't know of any other tool, even in the plant medicine world, that actually works as deep and as clearly and as fast as Iboga. So it's almost like, the way I equate it is almost like it's almost like normal life is like you're processing at 60 frames per second, and then many of the other plant medicine you'll be processing at 600 frames per second. But when you're doing Iboga, it's like processing at 6,000 frames per second. That's kind of like the speed or the intelligence. Also, the thing that makes Iboga very unique amongst compared to other plant medicines is that Iboga actually integrates itself. So many times, if you're doing many of, especially ayahuasca, you can spend years trying to integrate. So when I went to Peru and I started, I've done so much fucking ayahuasca. Sorry for this French there. Basically, I couldn't, after 2 years of going there, I felt like it was too much for me to actually integrate all these journeys and all this. It's almost like, and Joe Rogan also talks about this in one of his podcasts. He basically says that with ayahuasca, it's almost like there's a translation issue. But then with Iboga, it's crystal clear. It's like there's no doubt, and it's nothing to process. You just come out feeling totally aligned with yourself once you've done an Iboga journey. He basically says like the way Joe Rogan puts it into words, it's he says it's like the best version of yourself telling you what the fuck is up.
Jeez, I am gonna be doing research today on finding how I can get into a ceremony here as soon as possible.
Yeah, sure. That will be. You must just find the right people to do it with if you're going to do it. And I know it is very especially there in the States, it's quite a, how to say, it's quite a controversial thing with the government.
Yeah.
Well, you get them, can you ship the product into the US, the microdosing? Or
no, I have been shipping it into the US, and I have it set up as a private membership association.
Yeah.
The project. So basically, it takes it out of the public domain into the private domain. And so nobody can order from my website without joining the private membership association. So I'm looking to create that legal boundary. Like here in South Africa, for example, cannabis is totally illegal here in South Africa, but you're allowed to grow it at home. But the minute you sell it, you can get arrested. But then here in the city, Sea Point's one of the busiest areas in the city, and they've actually got a cannabis club. And they're operating because you can't enter that club and you can't buy anything until you join their club.
I love it. PMAs. We're a big fan.
He's working with Bradley.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Both working with him to set up his own PMA, but also is now doing some work with Bradley as well.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm helping them with the express trusts. I'm being a sole trustee at the moment as well. It's like a good gig.
I've got my first trust bank account done and it's open, and I feel so good about that.
Amazing. I would love to get one for myself as well. It's kind of like sounds like everyone should be doing it. Mm-hmm. And they're also doing it here in South Africa right now, the Express Trust. There's actually a few different groups here in South Africa actually promoting it as well. It seems to be getting quite out into especially in the alternative community. It seems to be getting Jim disappear.
Yeah, there he is.
It seems to be getting everyone starting to understand that these express trusts are like the way to go.
I love
kind of reclaiming our divine birthright and reclaiming basically our sovereignty and stuff. So
Matthew, after this call, I've got to fly, you guys. I've got a lot of stuff going on. My wife keeps calling and there's something going on. I don't know exactly what, but it's all good. But Matthew, could you do an email connect? I know we're already connected, but then I can reach out directly to you, Michael, and we can figure out next steps.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
We're going to be working very closely with Michael on a number of things. So,
you know what? You might want to bring those up. I'm going to run, but if you want, bring those up, and then I'll see you soon, and hopefully in person soon, Michael.
Yeah, I'd love to come visit once I'm closer. Yeah.
Awesome, cool. Everybody. Have a good chat.
I'll
talk again.
Thanks,
soon.
Jim.
Cool. Cheers, Jim.
Yeah, do you want to touch briefly on the human connector and what you've done there? Because to me, human connector fits very well with Iboga Reset.
Yeah, I can touch on that. And I can also touch on Unitree for a bit as well. So with the human connector, it's also something else I'm working on. The human connector is, I guess it has been inspired from my plant medicine work quite a bit. And the Human Connect is a new type of social network that I'm about to launch. I'm almost finished with it. And it's basically based on our DNA as well. It's a tool to get us to connect with each other based on basically our genetic processes and how we and help us fulfill our purpose with each other. Because, in our society, we're kind of based in let's say a competition paradigm. And the competition paradigm is based on everyone playing these roles, but these roles are kind of like false identities. And this tool that I'm looking to build, and also these false identities that we're playing, don't help us see each other clearly or ourselves clearly. And it doesn't, help us understand how to integrate with each other properly. But then I realized that we're doing that in order to fulfill each other's needs. And then through finding these tools that I've been working with, like human design and the gene keys is something I was touching on earlier on in the interview. These tools basically show us how our DNA is imprinted. And these tools are also about healing the DNA. So human design, it's about how to heal your DNA through listening to your body's intelligence. So we've all got a center of truth, and most human beings are making decisions from their mind. And when you make decisions from your body's intelligence, then you basically align with yourself. And it's all about becoming your true, authentic self. So and the gene keys is all about the trauma inside of our DNA. So in the gene keys, they reckon that humanity is caught in what they call the shadow state of consciousness. And that's all to do with our trauma. And it keeps humanity like a fear-based state of consciousness. And the gene keys is all about how we actually evolve out of the fear-based state of consciousness and into what they call the gift, where we're living more from our hearts than fear. And then eventually we would get into divine consciousness, where we're living as like a divine intelligence, where we have no fear at all. So these tools are like almost like self-development tools that I've basically been playing with for like over a decade as well. And then when I through working with these tools, and these tools basically work very well with plant medicines, like human design and the gene keys. Like when you're doing plant medicines and you understand your human design, you understand your gene keys, the plant medicines just teach you everything on such a deep level about who you are and how you operate and kind of what's going on in your life and all that kind of stuff. But then through playing with these tools, I also started to realize this would be an amazing thing as well to basically build into a social network, because we're basically these social networks control humanity. Like even Trump lost his presidency because of Twitter. So it just shows how much power these social networks have, because it's to do with how we connect with each other. And these tools, based on how we connect with each other, are keeping us in this paradigm. So the money systems, so basically between the money system and our communication tools, is keeping us in the matrix. So if we can start, so the two projects I'm actually working on, as well as Unitree is a new type of money system, and the Human Connector is a new type of social network. So I kind of see these two as kind of like pivotal pieces as well for kind of building a new paradigm. So the Human Connector is based on how we can connect with each other. So most people are using these social networks to try and connect with each other, but a lot of people are using the social networks and they're not getting what they like, things like Tinder and Facebook and all these things. They almost like feeling more isolated, more disconnected through using these tools. And these tools are also quite purposeless in quite a lot of ways. It's like they're not actually like if I join Facebook, it's not actually helping me build a new world. It's not actually helping me be more creative. So for me, it's just like, and it's almost like people, like there's an amazing writer that I love. His name is Charles Eisenstein. And he's got this amazing quote that joint consumption doesn't create intimacy. Only joint creativity creates intimacy. So for me, it's like all these like Facebook is like a social publishing platform. So it's basically where everyone goes to consume content together. And that doesn't create the intimacy that people are looking for. So my idea was basically to build a platform, like what I call it, instead of a social publishing platform, it's a social collaboration platform. We actually go and it facilitates you connecting with people and finding ways to work together and putting your projects on there, and you can see who's around you and what are their products and services that they're offering, and sort of like, so I was basically trying to build something that I would want to use that would actually facilitate us kind of working together. And then using the profiling tools like human design and the gene keys, you can actually see how you connect with other people and how you basically find fulfillment through your connections with each other. So especially through playing with human design, you'll have like you got these gates, and these gates connect with each other. And these gates create channels, and these channels create processes. So if you've got one gate, you need somebody else with a gate on the other end in order to complete a process. So if you can build that sort of like engine into a tool that's designed to connect people with each other, and then people can find the people that are around them and understand how these connections work. So that's basically what that's just like in a nutshell. It's hard to put the whole concept into like a 5-10 minute window.
We'll have to have you back on the show to dive into those things a little bit further. We can do a whole episode on the Human Connector and then another one on Unitree, because what you've got there is just phenomenal. And I really look forward to integrating that with what we're doing with Food Forest Abundance, because Unitree is all about the agroforestry, helping people, really leverage real assets, right? Our land, our nature ecosystems that we can build out with thoughtful design, leveraging permaculture. It's just the future is really exciting, man. And when you brought up Trump lost the presidency based off of Twitter, it made me just think of some of the nonsense around January 6th, right? And that story about this crazed insurrection and all that stuff. And I don't want to downplay the fact that there were a mob can turn into something negative, no question about it.
Yeah.
the important thing here is when you now look at these tapes, the video footage of what went on that day, and you see the Capitol Police fucking escorting people through the building to set them up in specific locations. And, you know, the guy with the horns, he walked with like 9 different Capitol Police officers in his little journey to get to where they wanted him to be, right? So there's the story they're telling us about how this thing was so bad and evil and the worst attack on democracy and blah, 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 blah. But then you fucking look over here, which they didn't actually analyze in the Capitol, in the trials, right? That committee didn't bring any of these things up. They actually didn't even want the footage, the thousands of hours of footage, of course, because it tells a different story. And the story is that it looks like they're saying, welcome, come on in, make yourself at home. We want to fuck with the world and the American people and pretend that something bad is going on over here so that we can, you know.
And I agree with you totally. It's like the whole thing is like a giant theater.
Giant theater, dude. And you know what's even crazier is now that people are seeing this, there should be a fucking uproar. Yeah. Whatever side of the aisle you're on, you should be pissed that your government was complicit in lying to you about something that has catastrophic consequences. It's insane where we're at right now from a political standpoint. The craziness on the manipulation and control of the media, the medical establishment. You know, you've recently had the former director of the CDC, Robert Redford, I believe his name is, something like that. He basically has thrown Fauci under the bus, and you know, Eco Health Alliance and DAZAC and all these people. It was created in a lab, which we all, well, all the people wearing tinfoil hats, we all knew, and they rushed this stuff to market. It was done with very negative intentions, and it's been extremely effective at really hurting a lot of people, destroying a lot of lives. And again, where's the media? You know, you go to Google after that thing was released, you can't even find it. You can find headlines like Will Smith is ashamed after being called out by Chris Rock after a year. You know, that kind of nonsense. But the fact that this was funded by the NIH, Mr. Fauci, DAZAC, and Eco Health Alliance, and on, that it was gain of function research, that it was, you know, an orchestrated, collaborated effort, an attempt to do many things. It's not newsworthy, according to Google.
No, we definitely.
But anyways,
like manipulating time.
Yeah, that's a whole other 10 episodes of the show. But yeah, that Trump comment brought that up, the craziness of January 6th and all the footage that's coming out now, and the lids being blown wide open. And what do you have? The Democrats still standing at the microphone going, they're making it look like something it wasn't. Actually, you did that.
Yeah, that's quite wild. It's kind of like it's almost like a giant parody of the whole thing.
The world's a stage, right? The world's a stage, and when you control the media to tell a vision and produce shows, they don't have the right intention in mind, right?
That's what they call television programming.
Programming. And it's been admitted. The CIA admitted they do it. So why are we surprised? They never said they stopped doing it. They were doing it, and they still do it today.
Yeah.
But anyways, folks, thanks for joining us on another incredible episode of the Jim Gale Show. Michael, thank you so much for joining us, man. Love seeing you. Thanks for everything you're doing. And we have to go head into another meeting to talk about carbon insetting.
Yeah.
Oh,
Awesome.
I'll let you hop off. I'll play a couple ads and I'll see you over there shortly. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Me. Cool, that was fun. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers, man. Well, we hope everybody enjoyed today's show. Incredible stuff that Michael's got going on, and we're just getting started on making such a positive impact through growing your own food, through connecting really through your DNA and with love, and leveraging, some of Mother Earth's natural plant medicines to erase trauma, or at least deal with it, face it head on, move through it, and recenter ourselves, reconnect to nature, reconnect to each other, which the powers that be are working real hard to separate and divide and create confusion and division, when really the vast, vast, vast majority of people all want the same stuff. We all want love. We all want to know that we're doing good for others. We all care about other people. And now is the time to show that to the world. So I'm excited for it. Thank you for joining us. We'll play a couple ads to wrap up the show, and we'll see you all again real soon. And if you enjoyed this show today, share with others. Invite people to come watch our live shows, which we're doing 3-4 times a week now. It's been fantastic.
At Weston A. Price Foundation, we're dedicated to restoring nutrient-dense, farm-fresh foods to the human diet. We look to ancient food and health practices for clues on how to live our healthiest, most vibrant lives today. Join the mission and check out our exclusive membership details at westonaprice.org. As a member, you'll receive our quarterly journal on wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts, our annual shopping guide, monthly access to private Q&A sessions with experts, consultations on state laws, regulations, and policies, including food freedom legislation, and so much more. Weston A. Price Foundation. Let's return to wise, traditional foods.
Hey, Jim Gale Show listeners, again, thank you for tuning in. We love having you here. We're so honored. And, I want to give you a little bit of exciting news. We've decided to offer complimentary food forest strategy sessions with a certified permaculture designer. These are 30-minute sessions where you get to sit down with someone who can really help you with a strategy for your own property. It's a great chance for you to ask some questions and learn and just really to dig into what's possible. This is 30 minutes with someone who's certified, knows all about permaculture and what's possible using this incredible science and working with nature. So head over to foodforestabundance.com and schedule your 30-minute food forest strategy session today. Again, that's foodforestabundance.com. And remember, get yourself registered for that 30-minute strategy session. And for doing so, we're going to give you a $100 coupon as well. So get over there, have some fun, learn about what's possible for you and your own property, and let's get growing some food. Thanks again for tuning in to the Jim Gale Show. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. We look forward to seeing you again real soon. And if you're curious about growing food and working in harmony with nature instead of fighting nature, look into permaculture. Go to our website, book yourself a 30-minute strategy session, meet with a permaculture designer who can really give you a high-level understanding about what permaculture is all about. By the way, permaculture stands for permanent agriculture. And in permanent agriculture, you mimic natural ecosystems. One of the core things is that you keep your soil covered and you work in layers. Right? When you think about our annual gardens and our monoculture farms, we typically have one layer of production. When you get into a permaculture food forest, or you look at nature and the forest, you see that it's multi-layered. You have your roots and tubers, you have your ground cover, you have your small shrubs, and you have bushes, and then small trees and canopy trees, and then you have vines. So working in that mesh of production increases your overall yield drastically. And because it's a permanent agriculture type of system, you're changing from working on fighting nature and keeping nature back to supporting nature and harvesting. So big difference. Something I knew nothing about until roughly 2 years ago. And what a tremendous journey it's been as I've discovered more and more about this incredible science called permaculture. So I hope everyone enjoyed the show. Thank you so much. Have a tremendous day. We'll see you again next week. The show is officially over. Cheers.